Imagine a man, 74 years old. He sits in the living room of the house he has owned for 30 years. The same house where his children grew up, where birthdays were celebrated, where arguments were made and forgiven, where the kitchen always smelled like something good. But today, the house is quiet. His children live in other cities now. They have their own lives, their own families, and they should. That is how it is supposed to be. He looks around the room and asks himself quietly, after all of this, what is truly mine? My friends, if you are over 60 or close to it, I suspect that question has found you too. Today, I want to sit with you and offer what the Buddha's teaching has to say about that question, because the answer may surprise you. Why letting go is not losing. We live in a society that teaches us from the very beginning to accumulate. Accumulate knowledge, accumulate money, accumulate status, build a career, build a family, build a legacy. And for most of our lives, that accumulation has a purpose. We are building something. We are needed. We are the one who provides, who protects, who holds things together. But somewhere after 60, and certainly after 70, something begins to shift. The children do not need you in the same way anymore. The career is behind you. The body slows down and reminds you every morning that it has its own agenda. And if you have not been prepared for this, it can feel like loss. It can feel like the world is quietly taking things from you, one by one. But I want to offer you a different way of seeing this. In Pali, the language of the early Buddhist scriptures, there is a phrase that appears again and again in the Buddha's teaching. Sabbe sankhara anicca. All conditioned things are impermanent. Everything that is built can be unbuilt. Everything that is gathered can be scattered. Every role we play, father, mother, provider, professional, every one of these is a sankhara, a constructed thing, held together by conditions. And when the conditions change, the role changes too. This is not a tragedy the Buddha is describing. This is simply the nature of things. I think of a woman I once spoke with. She lives in Tennessee, a grandmother, 71 years old. She came to me with tears in her eyes, and she said, "My son hasn't called in 3 weeks. 3 weeks and not a word." I listened, and then gently I asked her a question. I said, "Are you crying because you miss your son, or because you are afraid you are no longer needed?" She looked at me for a long moment, and then she said very quietly, "Both. Maybe mostly the second one." This is honest. This is very honest, and I respect her for it, because the fear of becoming unnecessary, the fear that our role has expired, this is one of the deepest fears of the later years. But here is what I want you to hear today. The roles we played were never what we truly were. The father, the mother, the provider, these are costumes, beautiful and meaningful costumes that we wore for a season. But underneath the costume, there is something that was never constructed, something that cannot be unbuilt, something that was never accumulated and therefore cannot be lost. So if the question is, what is truly mine after all these years, then we have to look past the roles, past the house, past the savings account, past even the memories that fade. We have to ask, what remains when everything that can be taken is taken? I want to offer you 3 answers, 3 things that are truly yours, not in a legal sense, not in any earthly sense, but in the deepest sense, the sense that matters most. The first thing that truly belongs to you is your awareness, not your thoughts, not your opinions, not your memories or your plans or your worries. Those come and go, and you know they come and go because you have watched them do so for 70 years. I am talking about something more fundamental than any of that. I am talking about the simple, quiet fact that you are aware. Right now, as you hear these words, there is something in you that is receiving them, something that is here, present, awake, not doing anything in particular, just knowing. That is awareness. And it has been with you since the first moment you opened your eyes in this world. There is a beautiful question that the Buddhist tradition asks. Sit with me for a moment with this question. When you sit quietly in the early morning, before the phone rings, before the day begins, and you hear a bird singing outside the window, who is hearing that? Not your name, not your history, not the role you play in your family. Something much simpler than that. Something that simply receives the sound. That is what I mean by awareness. And here is the remarkable thing about it. No one can take it from you. Your children cannot divide it when you are gone. The bank cannot foreclose on it. Even illness, even the cruelest forms of illness, cannot fully extinguish it. I have sat with people in the final weeks of their lives. I have sat with people whose memories were nearly gone, who could no longer remember the names of their grandchildren. And yet, in that quiet space, when you sat with them in stillness, they were still there. Something was still aware. Something was still present. Alzheimer's can erase the archive. It cannot erase the one who is aware right now in this moment. If you take nothing else from today's talk, take this small practice. Tomorrow morning, before you look at your phone, before you turn on the television, before you begin the machinery of the day, sit for 5 minutes. Just sit and notice, I am here. Not I am a grandfather, not I am a retired teacher, not I am someone whose back hurts. Just I am here. I am aware. That is enough. That is, in fact, everything. Because your grandchildren may forget your name one day. Time will erase many things, but you will never not be aware as long as you breathe. And that awareness, that quiet knowing, is more fundamentally yours than anything your name is on a deed for. The second thing that belongs to you, only to you, is your relationship with what happens to you. Let me be very clear about what I mean, because this is often misunderstood. I am not saying that pain is in your imagination. I am not saying that if you just think positively, the arthritis will go away. The Buddha was remarkably honest about this. He said, life includes dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, pain. This is not a problem to be fixed. It is a feature of being human. You will know loss. You will know physical discomfort. You will know loneliness and grief and regret. If you are over 60, you already know all of this. I do not need to tell you. But the Buddha also made a distinction, a very important distinction, between pain and suffering. Pain is what happens to you. Suffering is what you do with it. Pain is the aching me. Suffering is the story you tell yourself about the aching me. This is only going to get worse. I am becoming a burden. I am losing my independence. My life is diminishing. The pain may be real and unavoidable. The story is optional. I want to tell you about a man I knew, 78 years old. He was in the final months of his life. Cancer, advanced stage. Every morning, the nurses who came to care for him would say that he greeted them with a genuine smile. Not a performed smile, not a brave face, a real one. One of the nurses asked him, "How do you do this? How are you at peace?" And he said, "I decided a long time ago that whatever happens to this body, my heart does not have to go along for the ride." Now, I am not presenting this man as someone we must all aspire to become. Not everyone arrives at that place. Not everyone should feel pressure to arrive there. But what he had discovered is something the Buddha pointed to in every teaching. Our response to circumstance is itself a kind of action. In Pali, we call this kamma. Every moment we are sowing seeds, the seed of reactivity or the seed of equanimity, the seed of resentment or the seed of acceptance. And no one can plant those seeds for you. If you are living with chronic pain right now, and many of you are, here is a small practice you might try. When the discomfort is present, instead of immediately fighting it or narrating it, try saying to yourself very quietly, "This is here. I am also here. I am not this." 3 sentences, that is all. This is here. You are not pretending it isn't. I am also here. Awareness has not been swallowed by the pain. I am not this. You are the sky. The pain is the weather. No one, not your doctor, not your children, not even time itself, can choose how you meet this moment. That choice is yours alone. That is why it belongs to you, completely, irrevocably, until your very last breath. The third thing that belongs to you, and this one may be the most surprising, is the merit you have cultivated in your life. In Pali, the word is punna. It is often translated as merit, but that translation is a little thin. Punna is something closer to a quality of luminosity in the mind, an energy, a momentum. It is what is accumulated very quietly, very gradually, every time you act from kindness. Every time you choose generosity over greed. Every time you practice patience when impatience would be easier. Every time you sit in stillness, even for 5 minutes, and train the mind toward clarity. Now, I want to be careful here. I am not speaking about superstition. I am not speaking about earning points with a cosmic bookkeeper. I am speaking about something very practical and very real. The way you have lived leaves a mark. Not on paper, not in a will, but in consciousness itself. Think of it this way. Your house will go to whoever inherits it. Your savings will be distributed. Your car will be sold. Even your photographs will one day be thrown away by people who do not know who is in them. But the quality of how you have lived, the compassion you have offered, the patience you have practiced, the forgiveness you have chosen when resentment would have been so much easier, none of that can be inherited by another person. None of it can be divided or taxed or lost in a market crash. It is yours, woven into the very fabric of your consciousness. I want to share something with you. There was a woman, 82 years old, living in a memory care facility. She could no longer remember her children's names. She could not tell you what year it was or who the president was. But every single time a new resident arrived on her floor, looking lost and frightened, she would get up from her chair, walk over to them, and take their hand. Without being asked, without knowing why exactly, just because. That was punna. That was decades of kindness, of habituated generosity, expressing itself long after the conscious mind had faded. Merit is not stored in memory. It is stored in character. And here is the beautiful thing about this third belonging. You are still accumulating it. Right now. Today. Every day of your life that remains is not a waiting room. It is not a slow diminishment between who you were and the end. It is time. Precious time. In which the seeds you plant are planted in the richest soil. Because you have the wisdom now that you did not have at 30. A simple practice. Each day this week, Do one act of kindness that no one will ever know about. Not for recognition, not even for your own sense of virtue. Just quietly offer something. A prayer for someone who has hurt you. $1 to someone who needs it. A moment of genuine attention to someone who is invisible. What you give in kindness travels with your consciousness, further than any inheritance you could leave in a will. That is the third thing that is truly yours. I want to speak now for a moment not about your family, but through you to your family, even if they are not watching this, even if they will never see it. None of what I have said today is about turning away from the people you love. It is not about becoming a solitary figure who needs nothing from no one. It is about becoming more for them, not less. Because there is a paradox at the heart of aging, if we are willing to see it. When we demand that our family fill our loneliness, when we need their phone calls and their visits and their gratitude to feel that our lives still matter, we place a weight on them that love alone cannot carry. But when we are anchored in our own awareness, when we have cultivated some equanimity, some genuine inner peace, we become something extraordinary for the people we love. We become a place they can come home to. Not a place of need, a place of nourishment. Think of an old tree, a great old tree, one that has stood in a field for 100 years. It does not cling to its branches. It does not beg the birds to nest in it. It does not need the wind to tell it it is worthy. It simply is. And because it simply is, it gives shade and shelter and beauty without effort, without demand. I think of a woman, 76 years old. Every time her children came to visit, she did not ask, "Why haven't you called more often?" She did not make them account for their absences. Instead, she asked them one question, the same question every time. How is your heart today? Not, how is your career? Not, have you been to church? Not, when am I getting grandchildren? Just, how is your heart? Her children, all 4 of them, have said that question is the thing they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. That is a legacy, not a house, not a savings account, a question asked with genuine love. So, let us come back to the man sitting in the quiet house. He asks, after all of this, what is truly mine? And the teaching says, your awareness, the quiet, unshakable knowing that has been with you since the beginning and will be with you until the end. Your relationship with what happens to you, the freedom always available to meet this moment with something other than reactivity. And the merit you have cultivated, the luminous residue of every kind act, every patient choice, every moment of genuine love you have offered in your years on this earth. These 3 things, no one can divide them, no one can sell them, no one can take them when you leave. This week, I invite you to choose just one of these 3, not all 3, just one, and give it a little attention. Just a few minutes each morning. See what you notice. In the Pali tradition, there is a short blessing, Sabbe Satta Sukhi Hontu. May all beings be happy. You are a being too. You are included in that wish. May you be at peace. There is a moment every night, just before your eyes close, when the whole weight of the day is still resting on your chest. The conversations, the worries, the small disappointments, the things left undone. Sometimes a memory rises up from nowhere, sometimes a fear you cannot name. And most of us, we simply let it all blur together. We wait for sleep to take it away. But the Buddha noticed something that modern science is only beginning to understand. The mind you bring into sleep is the mind you wake up with. The last thoughts before you sleep are like seeds pressed into soft soil. In the dark, while the body rests, the mind continues to water them. So tonight and every night from now on, I want to offer you something. Not a meditation that takes an hour, not a ritual that requires candles or cushions or perfect conditions. Just 5 questions. 5 honest, gentle, deeply Buddhist questions to ask yourself every night before sleeping. Questions that, if you sit with them regularly, will begin to change something quiet and essential inside you. I offer this especially to those of you who are 60 or older. Because after 60, something shifts. Time no longer feels abstract. Each day has a different weight. And the practice of waking up, truly waking up, becomes both more urgent and more possible than ever before. In the Theravada tradition, there is a teaching called Sampajanya, usually translated as clear comprehension. It means knowing what you are doing, knowing why you are doing it, and knowing whether it leads toward freedom or away from it. Most people spend their 20s and 30s moving too fast for Sampajanya. There is too much noise, too many demands, too much future to chase. But after 60, the noise begins to quiet. The future shortens, not as a threat, but as a clarification. What actually matters starts to become visible. The Buddhist teachers say that the years after 60 are not the end of life's journey. They are the ripening. The time when the seeds you have planted in your relationships, your habits, your heart begin to bear fruit, for good or for ill. And the gateway into that ripening is the evening. The hour before sleep is when the ego drops its guard. The performing self grows tired, and something more honest, more tender, more real begins to surface. If we meet that moment with intention, with just 5 simple questions, we can use the final minutes of each day to tend the garden of our own minds. This is not self-improvement. This is not productivity. This is practice. Let us begin. Question 1. Did I cause any harm today with my words, my actions, or my thoughts? This is the first question, and it is the most grounding. In the Buddha's teaching, the foundation of everything before meditation, before wisdom, before any form of spiritual development is sila, ethical conduct, the commitment to do no unnecessary harm. Not because we are afraid of punishment, not because someone is watching, but because we understand at a deep level that harm ripples. The sharp word you say to your daughter at breakfast, she carries it to work. The impatience you showed the stranger in the grocery line, it colors his next interaction. The unkind thought you repeated about yourself all afternoon, it settles into your body as tension, as sleeplessness, as low-grade sadness. Every night before sleeping, we ask ourselves honestly, did I cause harm today? Now, and this is important, this question is not an invitation to self-punishment. I have met many older practitioners who use reflection as a weapon against themselves. They lie in bed rehearsing their failures like a condemned man rehearsing his crimes. This is not practice. This is just suffering with extra steps. The question is asked with gentleness, like a good doctor examining a wound, not to shame the patient, but simply to see clearly so that healing can begin. A man I once spoke with, 68 years old, a retired engineer, told me that for years he had been snapping at his wife in the evenings. Small things, the way she left the cabinet open, the volume of the television. He didn't even notice he was doing it, he said. It had become automatic. Then he began this practice, and on the 3rd night, when he asked himself, "Did I cause any harm today?" the answer came back immediately. Yes, the cabinet, again. He didn't spiral into guilt. He simply saw it, and that seeing was enough to change it. So tonight, ask yourself honestly, was there a word spoken too harshly? A silence that was unkind? A thought repeated about yourself or someone else that you would not want spoken aloud? See it, name it, and then offer metta. Breathe in and silently send loving kindness to that person or to yourself. It does not need to be elaborate, just a simple, quiet, may you be well, may you be at peace. The Dhammapada says, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Let your last thought about any harm you caused today be a word of peace, sent inward, sent outward, sent into the dark. Question 2. Did I show up fully today, or did I just go through the motions? This is a question about aliveness. There is a quiet fear that many people carry after 60, one that is rarely spoken aloud. It sounds something like this. Am I just waiting? Am I just filling the hours until the end? It is not a fear of death exactly. It is a fear of a kind of living death, of days that pass without texture, of a life that is technically continuing, but no longer truly being lived. Buddhism has a distinction worth knowing here. The Pali word jivita means the bare biological fact of being alive, the heartbeat, the breath, the continuation of the organism. But bhava, becoming, points to something richer, the active, present, fully engaged quality of a life that is actually being inhabited. After 60, many people unconsciously begin to shrink their bhava. They stop trying new things to avoid disappointment. They disengage from conversations to avoid conflict. They pull back from the world, not out of wisdom, but out of self-protection. A kind of preemptive retreat from life before life retreats from them. The Buddha saw this pattern clearly and called it one of the subtle forms of moha, delusion. The delusion that by shrinking, we are somehow safe, that by not showing up, we cannot be hurt. But the path, the Noble Eightfold Path, points in the opposite direction. Samma vayama, right effort. The ongoing, awake, present engagement with each moment that is given to us. So tonight, ask yourself, did I show up today? Not perfectly, not heroically. Showing up does not mean performing. It means, was I actually there? Was there a moment this afternoon when you were fully present, not planning, not replaying, not distracted, but simply here in the one place where life is actually happening? It might have been something vast, or it might have been something tiny. I remember an elderly woman, she was 72 and had recently lost her husband, who told me that she felt she was sleepwalking through her days. Nothing felt real, nothing felt worth doing. One morning, she sat on her back porch and watched a pair of cardinals at the feeder. She told me, I don't know why, but I just sat very still and watched them for maybe 10 minutes, and I was there, completely there. That was her moment of full presence for that day. That was her Samma Vayama. Even feeding the birds can be a full act of awakening, if you are truly there. So before you sleep tonight, find that moment. The moment today when you were fully present. Recall it. Rest in it for a few seconds. Let it remind you that the capacity is still there, alive and available, waiting to be used again tomorrow. Question 3. What did I let go of today? And what am I still clinging to? Of all 5 questions, this one tends to sit most heavily in the room. Because clinging, upadana in Pali, is one of the central causes of suffering in the Buddha's teaching. And after 60, the things we cling to often become very particular and very quiet and very difficult to see. We cling, of course, to our health, to the body as it used to be, before the knees started aching, before the stairs became longer, before the face in the mirror became unfamiliar. We cling to our roles, the professional identity, the parent who was needed, the person who was capable and strong and important. When those roles dissolve through retirement, through children leaving, through the slow rearrangement of life, something in us protests. But that was me. I don't know who I am without that. We cling to versions of people we love, the way our spouse was 20 years ago, the children as they were when they were small, and we suffer when the present reality doesn't match the beloved image we've kept in our hearts. We even cling to our suffering, our familiar sorrows, our well-worn grievances, because at least they are known. The teaching of anicca, impermanence, does not ask us to stop loving these things. It asks us to love them differently, to hold them the way you hold water in your hands, fully, tenderly, completely, and without the frantic grip that only causes the water to spill. There is a beautiful and somewhat startling line from the monastic tradition. Each night we sleep is a rehearsal for dying. Each morning we wake is a rehearsal for being reborn. I do not say this to frighten you. I say it because it is, in fact, a profound comfort. If every night is a small death, a releasing of this particular day, this particular version of ourselves, then we already know how to let go. We do it every night. We just haven't been paying attention. Tonight, before you sleep, try this small practice. Place your hands gently in your lap. Take one slow breath in, and as you breathe in, say silently to yourself, I hold. Think of whatever you are still carrying, the worry about your health results, the argument from last week that hasn't been resolved, the grief that surfaces at unexpected moments, the fear about money, about time, about what comes next. I hold. Then breathe out, long and slow, and say, I release. Not forcing, not performing, just opening the hand a little, letting the water find its own way. Repeat this 5 times. You will not release everything. That is not the point. The point is to practice the gesture, to train the hand to open. Because a hand that practices opening every night, over weeks and months and years, becomes a hand that holds life more gently and more fully than it ever did before. Question 4. Did I receive any beauty today? Did I notice it? I want to say something carefully here, because this question can be misunderstood. This is not positive thinking. It is not toxic optimism. It is not telling yourself that everything is fine when everything is not fine. The Buddha was not a positive thinker. He looked at suffering directly, without flinching, and called it by its name. He did not suggest that we paste smiles over pain. But he also taught mudita, often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy, the capacity to genuinely recognize, receive, and delight in beauty and goodness wherever they appear. And this capacity, like a muscle, can weaken with disuse. Research in psychology has shown that as we age, particularly if we have experienced significant loss or chronic stress, the mind begins to run a kind of filter. It notices threat. It anticipates disappointment. It scans for what is missing, what is broken, what is coming. This is not weakness. It is, in some ways, the accumulated wisdom of a life that has known real difficulty. But the filter can become too dense. It can begin to screen out not just danger, but also the cardinal at the feeder, the smell of coffee in the morning, The light coming through the kitchen window at 4 in the afternoon. The sound of your grandchild's laugh. These are not small things. In the Buddhist understanding, they are reality. Just as real as the pain. Just as present as the grief. To receive beauty is an act of spiritual courage. It is saying, I refuse to be so armored by what I have lost that I cannot be touched by what is still here. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Vietnamese Zen teacher, once wrote, "The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now." So before you sleep tonight, close your eyes and let one beautiful thing from today rise up. It does not need to be significant. It does not need to be earned. Maybe it was the warmth of the sun on your arm through the car window. Maybe it was the voice of an old friend on the phone. Maybe it was a sentence in a book that made you catch your breath. Maybe it was nothing more than a perfect cup of tea held between both hands on a quiet afternoon. Find it. Sit with it for just a moment. Let it count. Question 5. Am I at peace with the fact that this day will never come again? This is the deepest question of the 5, and I want to meet it with the care it deserves. In the Theravada monastic tradition, there is a practice called Maranasati, the contemplation of death. Every evening, many monks reflect quietly on this reality. This day has passed. My life is shorter by one day. What have I done with it? In Western culture, this kind of reflection is often considered morbid. We are taught in 1,000 subtle ways to avoid thinking about death, to push it away, to treat it as an enemy to be defeated, or at least postponed for as long as possible. But the Buddha looked at this avoidance and called it exactly what it is, a form of suffering. Because when we cannot befriend impermanence, when we cannot even look at it, we carry a constant low-grade anxiety about the very ground beneath our feet. Nothing can be fully enjoyed because everything is secretly threatening to end. Maranasati does not ask you to dwell on death with fear or grief. It asks you to acknowledge reality with dignity. This day, this exact day, May 12th, 2026, with its particular quality of light, its specific conversations, its precise texture of feeling, will never come again. Not in 10 years, not in another lifetime. Never. And there is something breathtaking about that. After 60, most people have developed at least a peripheral awareness of mortality. You have lost people you love. You have sat at bedsides and stood at gravesites. You know, in a way that your younger self did not, that time is not infinite. The practice of Maranasati simply asks you to bring that knowing into the present moment, not to create despair, but to create attention. Because if today is irreplaceable, then the conversation you had this morning matters. Then the glass of water you drank slowly in the afternoon matters. Then the moment you held someone's hand, or smiled at a stranger, or looked at the sky and felt something stir in your chest, that matters. The Theravada tradition speaks of approaching death not as an ending, but as a passing on, a transition held with as much awareness and as little resistance as possible. And every night of peaceful, conscious sleep is a practice for that larger passing. Every morning of renewed awareness is a practice for what the tradition calls the possibility of continued life, continued learning, continued compassion. So tonight, before you sleep, place one hand gently over your heart and say quietly to yourself, to this day that is now ending, today was real, today was mine, I am grateful. Not because everything today was good, not because there was no pain, no difficulty, no moment you wish had gone differently, but because it was, because you were in it, because this unrepeatable thread of time was given to you and you lived it, and now you're releasing it with dignity. After 60, every night you sleep is a blessing. Every morning you wake is a gift. The question is only this: are you receiving it? Before I close, let me gather these 5 questions into one simple practice you can carry with you tonight. You do not need a meditation cushion. You do not need a teacher present. You do not need silence, though silence helps. You need only yourself and a few minutes of honesty. Lie down or sit comfortably. Take 3 slow breaths, letting each exhale be a little longer than the inhale. Then one by one, ask yourself, 1. Did I cause any harm today with my words, my actions, or my thoughts? See what comes. If something arises, offer metta, send loving kindness. Even 30 seconds is enough. 2. Did I show up fully today, or did I just go through the motions? Find one moment of true presence from today, even one. Let yourself rest in it briefly. 3. What am I still holding? What can I release? Breathe in, I hold. Breathe out, I release. 5 times without forcing. 4. What beauty did I receive today? Did I notice it? Let one beauty